A warm welcome to all of you lovely ladies and the allies who've joined this special edition of the India Impact Communication Conclave Women's Day Special Online Edition. So without further ado, let's jump right in and start with the first panel, which I have the honor to moderate. And this panel will be on scratching more than the surface of diversity, a look into where we stand as fellow professionals. My fellow panelists are Chaya Arora, SAP India, Geetanjali Nehru, Max Life Insurance, Neha Bajaj, Scroll Mantra, Priya Badshah, Invesco, and Vasudha, Mars Petcare. Welcome to the conversation to all of you. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
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 Shreya.
Hi. Without further ado, let me jump right in and let me start. I see Chaya on my screen first, and I'll go in order from there on. Chaya, if you can share your thoughts on what you think and where you think we are in context of the topic itself. And if you can share your thoughts on that, and then we'll do a round robin and come back to my set of questions.
Okay, so thank you for having me on the panel, and it's an honor. My thoughts on the panel are this is again a discovery that we've had when we do such diversity and inclusion or Women's Day celebrations at workplace, or also amongst peers when we're having this conversation. So the broad outcome that I hear and I feel and I also believe is that, empowerment, women being the weaker section is a past conversation. I don't think anyone on this panel, or also people who've joined us today, believe that we are any weaker or we are any, we are not equally empowered. I don't think so. But yes, there are sections of the societies which need the hand holding, and which is what we empowered women should be giving on to them. So I very strongly believe that there is a very big population who needs help, but then we are the privileged ones who've got all the kind of facilities, empowerment that we are experiencing today. And so yeah, I don't find the need to celebrate International Women's Day.
I absolutely agree with you. So on that note, Priya, I'll come over to you and switch to you and ask you about what do you think is the context that we're really going to dwell on later today in the conversation?
So hi everybody once again. Shreya, coming quickly to your question, I think all of us have spent now more than a decade in the industry. I've spent close to 2 decades, and definitely scratching the surface. What's the topic? What do we speak about? The privileged ones, like Chaya said, we have gone a little way ahead of scratching the surface, but at the same time, communications as an industry, as a fraternity, can take that pride that, we don't have to worry about a ratio or stuff. But having said that, so that's the quantitative part. Having said that, the qualitative part, how do we empower, how do we make it a welcoming, industry for ourselves, for our fraternity, is something, yes, I can say, we are scratching the surface. The good news is there is more than enough awareness. I think it's now like, roll your sleeves, get onto it, and again, get onto it. It's not something where you start rolling initiatives and programs on Women's Day. It's about mindset, which I'll elaborate further, but it's about the mindset. And I think if over the course of the day, if we can, come up as a collective voice, how do we nail this? I think we'll meet the purpose of the day. Thanks.
Absolutely, Priya, and we'll come more to the whole context of the mindset shortly. Geetanjali, I'm going to quickly switch to you and ask you for your opening thoughts on where do you think we are and where do you think this whole scratching the surface needs to really go to?
Hi everybody, and Shreya, thanks for putting this forth. This question is very interesting, and to be honest, I've been thinking about it. It's such a loaded question. And sometimes I feel, when you're looking at, and I was speaking to somebody, let's say this morning as well, we concluded a D&I week, Priya, like you said, there are so many celebrations, etc. And then yesterday was, surprisingly, you wake up and my little daughter, who's 3 years old, we're wishing her happy Women's Day or Girls' Day. And she's like, what are we talking about? And my son, who's 5 years old, says, Mama, what about a happy Men's Day? When is that? And, you actually sit and think, is this about a day? Is this about, a year? Is this about, what is this really about, diversity? And for me, I think I am again one of those privileged few where I have managed to reach where I've reached and have had the right opportunities, also been able to take those up. But the rule of the average is not the same. It's definitely not the same. And I think it is very critical that professionals like us sit together, discuss, and also deliberate on some very critical steps that all of us need to take, whether it is mindset, culture, etc. And how do we need to change and move the ante from where it is today towards something else, as a country where we stand today. And I talk about the country more so because I think we have a huge scope for a move. So I feel this is a great opportunity. It's a very important one. And I think as PR professionals, we're so used to providing messaging, providing talking points, questions, and being right in most of those, like the leaders should talk about this. I would love to go beyond that in this discussion today. I would love to think what is really out here, what do we really mean, and what we're saying, how much of it is already being put into practice by each one of us in our spheres of influence. Shreya.
Absolutely, that totally refers to the whole scratching beyond the surface, and I think going deeper within ourselves and looking at the ecosystems that we're part of. Vasudha, I'm going to come to you and ask you for your opening thoughts on where do you think we are, what is the scenario, what do you feel, what do you think, because all of those amalgamate into the larger story, really.
Thanks, Shreya. See, where I'm concerned, I personally believe that we've come a long way. And I personally do not believe in celebrating Women's Day or whatever, because I think every day is Women's Day or every day is any day that you want to celebrate. That's one part of it. So, but yes, what I do think is that it gives us an opportunity to look at topics which probably get overlooked on a regular basis, and something that we can bring our focus back into and then really talk about it and bring it back to the surface in case it's getting lost somewhere. When we think about diversity, okay, the way, again, Geetanjali said, let's not look at key messages, but I'm going back to a thought process which exists in my organization, Mars, which is very much, every organization is working towards diversity. But when we talk about diversity, we don't talk about it without inclusion. Okay. And when we mean inclusion is not, again, it's not one fancy kind of a term. It's just about including the differences. It's about really examining the differences, and it's more about acceptance. It's about really, and when we talk about it more today, I'll probably delve a little deeper into how our own unconscious biases create those differences, and therefore we need to to like it said that to change the world, you have to start with ourselves. And I think that's where the journey of diversity totally begins. So that's my 2 bit on it.
Absolutely. So I think there you go, looking at change from within us to change the system outside us is what Vasudha referred to. Neha, I'll come to you quickly and ask you about what do you think and where do you think we are at this current juncture on our various journeys and collectively?
Thank you so much, Shreya. Firstly, a very good afternoon to all of you, and thank you so much for having me on the panel. I think my peers have given some great insights on diversity, and I think I agree with most of them. And I think as an industry, we have a responsibility towards bridging the gap for our fellow professionals. We've definitely come a long way, but there's still a huge gap that needs to be filled. And I think diversity is definitely imperative, not just for social justice, but also for professional upliftment. I think, the market forces are now demanding a change that we need to create an environment where everyone feels valued, irrespective of their gender, marital situation, culture, or race for that matter. I think it is not only important to lay down a strategy for diversity hiring in the industry, but also to strategize the ways to manage it, I think, which we will be discussing, in the course of the panel.
Absolutely. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's my panel sharing what they believe in the context of what we're discussing today. And with that, I come to my first question. And what I'll do is, Geetanjali, I'll start with you. And this question is the same for all of you, because it's, it's what you think about equity. What does equity mean to you? And are we really there yet? So Geetanjali, I'll start with you, and then we'll go around the table and get everybody's thoughts. Yeah.
Of course. So what does equity mean to me? I think, Shreya, it means empowerment in one word. It just means empowerment. And I think at another level, if I was to scratch the surface of equity, I would love to be in a world where equity as a concept doesn't need to be spoken about because it's the skin of the game. It is in our DNA. It just exists. It's a natural. It's like we don't have to talk about the blood going through our veins because it's just there. So equity is just there. And that would be the ideal case scenario where nobody, no diverse, candidate, person, individual, child, whoever has to ever speak about it. So for me, equity is empowerment, development, being just, fair, all of those things. And I know everybody will agree. Are we there yet? No. I feel terrible about saying this, but no. But the silver lining is, I think over the last few years, we've really moved in that direction. I think the conscious and the deliberate attempt to make a difference when it comes to bringing equity into the folds of our workings, whether at home, in schools, whether it is in colleges, youth, millennials, or it is in organizations, at least the conversation's begun. And that's, I think, the awareness is half the battle won. Once we diagnose the problem, we know we will find a solution to the problem. That's what I would think, Shreya.
Absolutely. Diagnose the problem, acknowledge that there is a problem. By what the statistics say, it's going to take us 130 years to reach true equality, and none of us are perhaps going to be there when that happens. And that's the ground reality, Having said that, now let me move to Priya. Priya, I'll come to you and I'll ask you, what does equity mean to you? And where do you think we are?
Okay, Shreya, so completely agree what Neha said, and just building on that, it has to be inherent. Right now, it's acquired. Inherent in the sense you don't really need to call out. It's there. It's like the air we breathe. The sun comes and the moon comes at their respective times. So it's just there. It's natural, like she said. So definitely we are not there. We are there in pockets. So there are individuals in individual capacity. There are organizations. There are forums. There are corporations, NGOs who have done a bit on that. So there are, and therefore, I mean, if we compare a decade back, at least there are pockets. So like I said earlier, I think there is time and again, there's a lot of stuff around awareness, but to actually, pick up the ball and let the ball rolling, look around, there's a lot of work to be done. So that's where I feel we are still miles away. But I really wish what you said that, it's 130 years. I think if I can have, lesser than 15, I think it just takes a really, really conscious effort. Just do it kind of a thing. I mean, here we speak about women power. We speak about, where there's a will, there's a way. There is no dearth of the financial support as initiatives, because a lot of corporations have, time and again voiced that, it's very much their agenda. So I really can't figure out personally what is left that we are not able to find. What's that piece of the puzzle we are not able to find? It's all there. The cards are on the table. I think it's execution time. Just take the converts, work on the people who are sitting on the bench, and just do it. So yeah, hopefully, that 130 is it's just like a sales target. We're going to reach much before.
Let's get the action going. Absolutely. Vasudha, coming to you. What does equity mean to you?
To be very honest, this whole thing about equity, equality, to me, to a large extent, it sounds like rhetoric, to be very honest. Because, see, personally, I may be privileged. So I have never, ever faced a situation where I've not felt equal to, somebody of another gender or in any other position, or, I've always had the intrinsic power to be seen as who I am, so there's never been this thought about equality and equity and whether I'm being treated fairly or not. But I think somewhere, and what's the benchmark? What's the benchmark of equality? When you say equality, it's a relative term, right? So it has, you have to bring it up somewhere. So is the male gender higher than the female gender? What is the equality that we don't think? So I would like everybody to, I mean, it's kind of, I can say that this is a provocation to the panel, perhaps, to really think about what equity means and how does it impact each one of us. Do we really need to be equal? Do we need people to be fair to us? So I think there are a lot of questions. I do understand that there are people who need to be lifted up, but equity, equality, I find that again to be a bit of it's a bit nebulous to me, to be very honest.
Right. I think, yes, you said that. You said, I think collectively this panel does come from a place of massive privilege, because I think all of us own our spaces and our voices. But it's important to remember that we continue to live in a world where only 22% of parliamentarians around the world are women, where from 9% to 60% of pay difference between the same roles between men and women exist. Like I said, we're also privileged to be in an industry which fortunately has a lot of space and sort of gives voices to the people that it brings in. And I think that privilege and being conscious of that, and considering we work in the space of communications, it becomes our onus and responsibility to ensure that we don't allow it to be a rhetoric. It may be a rhetoric for us, but the reality outside. But I love the fact that you question the question on equity and equality. And Neha, I'm going to come to you at this juncture and ask you what equity really means to you, and then we'll come to Chaya next.
Okay, so I think Vasudha and Geetanjali already touched upon it. I think we definitely, all of us sitting here, are definitely privileged class of the society. And like Vasudha said, this question of equality was never ingrilled in me. Okay, am I getting equal opportunities? Am I not getting equal opportunities? I think, but as we have gained more experience and we're getting more aware of what's happening around, I think for me, equity is also about giving equal opportunities and giving everyone the platform they deserve. I think not being biased, and it also once we start instilling it, especially I think, and it also starts from the top. Today 70% of my workforce is women, and I have young parents. 80% of my senior leadership team is women. So I think once that culture is inherent, I think you end up attracting more talent, you increase retention, and I think it also boosts morale of the employees. So and honestly, I think we are also lucky to be a part of this industry at the moment, because we are reaching there. We're not there completely, but I think we have to take the ownership to make sure that we imbibe an unbiased and a fair culture.
Right. So imbibing the unbiased culture, and Chaya, coming to you and what equity means to you. I think after this, I have a couple of more questions which I'll do a round robin of, but on this one, let's get your thoughts.
Okay. So, I'm the last on the panel and everybody has said, which we all agree, but I just like to leave one point. Equity is a matter of the heart, and it starts from the home. So, the 130-year journey, if you want to finish it fast, we need to bring that at home, right from the people who work at home and at our workplace. So if our perspective is right, I think equity is not going to be a word that's going to be played around.
Right. Okay. So on that note of equity, I'm going to now switch gears and talk about diversity. And let's remember that I'm not referring alone to gender diversity. I'm also referring to generational diversity, skill-based diversity, diversity of various backgrounds and cultures, diversity of also freedom of expression in any form and way and manner. So where do you think we are, and where do you think we need to go from here? And this is a specific question about, are we practicing this within our own circles, and are we as women of privilege and women of voice and space really bringing the diversity conversation into the fore? And I think I'll start with Neha, and then we'll go around this way this time.
I think in terms of diversity, we still have a long way to go. I think I personally don't know of an agency or a company in our particular industry who probably have transgender as one of their employees. So I think, that's a very small little thing, but that inclusion needs to start from us, is what I feel. I think studies have indicated that companies with more diverse hiring have increased rate of productivity. The business retention is better decision making. The kind of exposure diversity brings to your own company, I think that's something which we probably as leaders are probably not looking at that right now. And once we start acknowledging it, I think we'll be there.
Right. So let's start acknowledging it as Neha put forth. Vasudha, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to ask you the same question. Talk about diversity and where do you think we are and where do you think we need to go from where we are?
See, I think Neha is absolutely right. I think we're very far away from reaching a place where we can say that everybody is included, and diversity is part of our, like it runs in our bloodstream. So I think yes, we have to make that very conscious effort. And I think as empowered women, we I think I'm repeating myself here that we are the change makers. So when we start really working with our teams, mentoring our people, really changing the environment around us, looking at maybe our children, our friends or whoever, and really talking about being conscious of the biases that we have, so we don't know what are our unconscious biases. Why do we like somebody and why does somebody just simply put us off? It may have nothing to do with it, and it may not be because we are mean people or because we like to differentiate. It's not like that. It just happens because these are something that we have inside of us. So tomorrow, when we're meeting somebody or hiring somebody or working with somebody, I mean, we should look at how we are judging people, and why we are making those inferences that why do we think that this person is probably more efficient, or that person is more capable of traveling, or that person will bring a lot more to the table. I think somewhere examining those nuances within us, what are the patterns that we seek, what are the patterns we repel, and looking at those aspects and making people aware of it. And I think this panel is really wonderful in that sense, because we're talking about these things now and it'll reach out to a larger audience, and people will then realize that yes, diversity is not about them, diversity is about me, it's about us, so we need to include everybody, and then that's how it works. So
yes,
that's
absolutely. We need to include everybody, and that's the point that I think I'll hold on to from this piece. And Chaya, I'm going to come to you, and then to Priya and Geetanjali. Chaya, tell us about diversity and your angle and lens on it.
Okay, so I come from a company, SAP, which is extremely conscious about diversity across all segments. So it's gender diversity or generational diversity or religion diversity. We also have autism at play, and we also bring in transgenders. Pride of month is like a big agenda on cards for us. So thankfully, what I see around me is that diversity is bigger agenda. The board is conscious, and people are hiring people from across diversity. So that's the first step taken. But I very strongly feel that if we really need to be a very diverse set of workforce, we need to ask for the chair on the table, and that's what we don't do. So if there are people in the generational diversity, they need to stand up and ask for their right. They need to prove themselves. So so from where I am seeing the lens is that there is the consciousness and there is diversity on cards. People are recognizing it. People need to start getting up and asking for their rightful right.
Okay, perfect. So remember that it's a constant conversation, and you need to bring it to the fore, and you need to call it out when you see that it is unconscious bias. So there is some form of non-inclusive agendas that are happening around us.
Absolutely.
So Priya, let me come to you and ask you for your thoughts on this one, and let's see, and let's go.
Sure. So Shreya, you said that we need to have constant conversations. I would just like to add another C, constant candid conversations, and I'll be very candid in the next 1 minute. First is somehow, while organization, individuals, PR heads, Copcom heads, they do their bit and with the right intent. But what happens is we've also kind of fallen into a pattern where, if March is coming, we gear up for Women's Day. If there is June, there's Pride Month. So somewhere I would like, if there's one message I would want to give to the audience is step back and think of diversity of thought rather than, with gender, with section. Start with diversity of thought. In a work life or even at home, it should be merit-based wherever, whatever chair you want at the table, let it be merit-based. Performance, our roles are all have to be gender agnostic. So I'm just staying because of today's occasion, I'm just staying on gender diversity. I'm not getting into the other, variants of diversity. But I wouldn't like, I mean, I can really take full liberty and speak on behalf of every woman professional, as part of this panel and audience. Would we really like to be, to have a chair on basis of entitlement? No, we don't want. Yeah. So gender doesn't come into the picture. Choose me for my merit. Choose me to what I bring to the table. Let's not have people. Let's not have voices and see. Okay, where is the voice coming from? Male, female, women, men. Choose us on the basis of entitlement. There's no quota. So I think all those things, being very candid, it's agnostic. So first of all, and again, this I'm talking about pockets which are evolved. I completely understand. I'm empathetic of unevolved pockets where, they are still scratching the surface. But if we are the haves in this landscape, then first of all, just get rid of, like a lot of people said here, special status. What is special? I mean, sometimes we want a special status and sometimes we want equal. And so sometimes, there is this cobweb that we keep changing. We want to be equal, special, above, we have 10 hands. What is it? So it's a diversity of thought. Blur those lines. Is just individuals. I mean, if we are talking about professional life right now, blur those lines. I mean, I'm a professional. So is my, colleague who's a female, who's a male. We are just professionals. What do we bring to the table? And we as voices to our organizations or to our teams backward, it shouldn't come into the conversation. I mean, why? It's like it happened with me. My daughters, when we moved from Bombay to Hyderabad, their earlier school was a girls' school. So when we moved to Hyderabad, it was a co-ed. And she, for a long time, kept on saying, Amit, my classmate who's a boy. Okay, so this happens because suddenly you're in a landscape where you have to call out. And I took time because she was quite young and I had to say, I get it, Sarah. And even if the name is Kiran, which is for a girl and a boy, it's fine. I mean, we get it. You don't have to call out, if it's a male or a female, So those kind of things, I think that's where, if I have to sum up, it's diversity of thought. Let's learn. Let's be candid.
Absolutely. Because equality only comes when you stop asking for special privileges. While yes, social justice is needed in systems and places where there is no equity or equality already, and we need to bridge that gap, let's be conscious of the fact that asking for special privileges actually goes against the entire construct of equality. Right. Geetanjali, coming to you on this particular question, because after this, I'm going to go, I know I have 2 more questions, but I'm going to go into a rapid fire because I'm conscious of the time that we have and I want the questions from the audience as well. So Geetanjali, coming to you on your thoughts on diversity.
Okay, quick, Shreya. I know you're on a really short time leash here, and I know everybody's covered most of the points, and I kind of agree with Chaya when she says, the kind of availability of resources and employee resource groups when it comes to different kind of diversity. I've been in organizations where the journey has already begun, organizations where they're beginning, and organizations with extremely mature place when it comes to diversity and the acceptance of differences, at the end of the day. Just 2 things, Shreya, I would like to point out. I think it's a big difference if you're thinking both top down and bottoms up, when it comes to bringing about that change. Top down, because let's say if you're saying, let's say the Companies Act in India says, okay, you've got to have diversity on the board, mean it. I would look at the leadership to really mean it when they're doing that. Do not put a woman out there who's your wife or your sister or your aunt just because the name has to be there. Mean it, because she will bring the value to the table. And exactly going by what Priya said, it is merit. It is absolutely based on merit. And that is how it should be when it comes to a mindset change. Bottoms up, it is for all the diverse, people out there, all the different thinking and accepting, the differentiations amongst us. I think you need to stand for yourself, whether it is a woman, whether it is an LGBTQ, whether it is, differently abled. Stand for yourself. You need to demand equality. It is what it is. And in today's day and age, you have to build your confidence and strength to ask for your right, because it is your right to be out there, to be in an environment which is equal, which actually empowers you and accepts you for what you are. That's my 2 bits.
I feel like in the parliament when they hit the bench, I feel like all of your voices, I feel like doing that. But true applause, really, because I think none of you really, held back on sharing what you feel. And I think these strong voices and these conversations need to come to the fore every day to challenge people and challenge the way they think. Talking about challenges, I'm going to do a quick rapid fire. We have about 12 minutes. We have 2 questions from the audience. So I'm going to do a quick rapid fire as what do you see are the top 3 challenges and obstacles in this journey that we're looking to get to. Chaya, I'll start with you and then go around. 3 challenges, 3 words, and that's it. And we'll go to the next.
So challenges actually are not real. I think they are a perspective. It's how you take it. I grew up with body shaming because of my sheer size. So for me, any challenge is a small challenge. I grew up with it. So challenge is a mindset. Challenge is, to my mind, is not real. It's a perspective, how you take it. And challenge is good. You learn with it.
Okay. Yeah, so Priya, challenges and obstacles in your context.
Okay, Chaya nailed it. My first is mindset. Like I've already said, it's a mindset, just step out of it. The other is to be conscious because, I might have overcome the first challenge and then, I just get swayed because in the rhythm of things. So it needs a check and balance all the time. So that's a challenge. It has to be sustainable. And the third part is when you really overcome, how do you raise a helping hand? Otherwise, there's no point. You just go with alone with it. So how do you make it into a community thing? So I think these are the 3 things.
Right. Geetanjali, over to you.
First and foremost, Shreya, unconscious bias. And that's not just for one gender against the other and vice versa. It's everywhere. Even I get biased. I assume sometimes when people are not talking to me properly, he thinks I'm a woman, so he's not talking to me properly. Why? It's just because maybe I have an irritating personality. Who knows, So that is an unconscious bias and it should be both ways. That's number 1. Number 2, I think somewhere culture. It's falling through the cracks. We are not supporting this piece of change and it has to start from home, like Priya had mentioned. Number 3, I think commitment from people who are the haves or the people who are, in a place where they can afford to pay. So the big commitment to bring about that change and stand by that commitment then.
Absolutely. So there you go. Vasudha, over to you.
3 words, right? So I think it's about resilience. We have to be resilient in the face of challenges. Very important. I think as senior professionals, we should also be looking at mentoring. Focusing on building community, building strength, and the third thing would be confidence. So I think just go there and get it. I think that's most important.
Go there and get it. And Neha, coming to you. Yeah.
Okay. So I also agree with Geetanjali. I think the biggest challenge is a failure towards having an open and unbiased thought process, which eventually leads to prejudice and stereotypical behavior. And number 2 and 3, I would say, would be patriarchy, which is again grilled into our systems. And of course, in the metros, we're seeing a change, but not in tier 2 and 3 cities. And the third, of course, is culture. I think that inheritance of that culture has to change. So for me, these are the 3 top things.
Absolutely. This reminds me, since we all spoke about unbiased, being unbiased. I think there was this line of saying unconscious bias should become conscious unbiased, and this was my CEO yesterday who was sharing that. I'm going to challenge myself to be consciously unbiased constantly. So on that note, I'm going to pick up the 2 questions from the audience that we have. Priya Pugaukar asks, while companies talk about diversity, women often find themselves in roles which are less challenging and less rewarding. How can we change this scenario? Anybody wanting to take this particular one?
I'll take it, Shreya, to begin with,
Yes.
and then, company, it's almost like government versus public, right? Government is not doing anything or whatever government has done. So in the same analogy, I think the organization time and again have voiced their intent. It's good intent, and we as professionals carry that intent into campaigns and actually practice along with HR health. But there's only that much we can do. I mean, it's not all encompassing. So therefore, I think whoever wishes to have, and it's a candid opinion of mine, whoever wishes to have the accountability that, okay, at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, what did I do to actually either help somebody who's trying to bring that change or do something? What's my bit? So I think if everybody, dons that hat of accountability, I want to make a change for myself and maybe, a fellow colleague, it's all about numbers in that sense, joining hands, just resting on the organization. Because what is organization? It's all employees put together, right? There's not like a board of directors who can churn all these things. So that's one angle, and I'll leave it to the panelists if they have something to add.
Anybody else wanting to add anything else to that particular
Shreya,
question?
I'd just like to share a perspective here.
Yes,
I have worked in manufacturing quite a bit, and in one of the organizations where you have, factories, and in which you have CNC operators, the people who are really on the floor, and then there are technicians who go to the clients' factories to fix the machines when there is a problem, right? So in one of our organizations, I remember, it was a big talk of the town that a woman came and she said, I want to be a service technician. And would you believe it? She came, and the first step that the organization took was, this is excellent. We have to have her, but let's talk to her. Does she know what she's in for? And what was the next step? The HR, the business head, everybody sat her down and counseled her and tried to understand from her perspective, why did she want to do this? Do you know what you're in for? It's not a joke, right? And the woman had the right belief, confidence, and commitment to the cause. She said, no, I love it. This is what I love doing. Give me some time. I will show you what I can do. And what was the result? It became a case study by itself, one of the first organizations to have a service technician who was a woman, who did wonders, because what she brought to the table was not only understanding of the problem, multitasking, but also sensitivity towards the client and his or her needs. So if you ask me, what should organizations do? First of all, organizations, again, I think it's a top-down approach. The leadership has to be sensitive, has to be accepting, and has to commit to the cause of diversity, not just gender, but otherwise. Commit publicly, pledge publicly. And from bottoms up, have the confidence, guys. If you have the conviction to make it happen, it will happen. There is nothing that can stop you, but you've got to have the conviction to make it happen.
Absolutely. Personal conviction meets societal standards. I'm getting a lot of questions. I'm going to strictly go into this answer if we can get quick answers. Priya talked about getting chosen.
Yeah, I think the voice is breaking.
Yeah, there's a Shreya, there's.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
The voice is garbled.
I'm so sorry. Apologies. Is this fine?
Yes.
I hope you can hear me. Okay, so I said the next question is, Priya talked about getting chosen on the basis of merit, but diversity plays a huge role in education opportunities, which in turn affects merit. So does anybody want to take this question on educational opportunities?
So I'll talk about it. See, in today's day and age, I'm not sure, whether there are unequal opportunities out there. I think it's about really understanding, and especially, I mean, even in rural areas, I mean, you see girls, cycling, going to school, those opportunities exist. It's all about changing our mindset and saying that, yes, this is what I want and this is what I will fit into. I mean, what Geetanjali talked about was a great example, right? So if we have the conviction, I think there are, I know no colleges or schools in India say that, we only have 30%, we'll only have 30% women.
True.
No, I think everybody has the capability and the choice, and I think we should try and make the most of it.
Absolutely. There's a question from Sanika Nevaskar, who says, I would like if the panel could talk about intersectional equality. Women from different classes, caste, economic backgrounds, or body types are also treated differently, sometimes by women themselves, making women intrinsically oppressors. How should one keep our privilege in check then? I think this is something that the panel discussed actually, and the question has come up, so I'm going to leave it open to the panel for any of you to address it.
I think just have a very, to answer that, we need to have a very strong HR system. So I think have a great, strong policy, stronger culture, like, body shaming or, creating distinguish between people based on their caste or creed, not giving them equal opportunities. So I think that has to stop, and having a strong, Geetanjali also mentioned, it has to start from the top, and you need to set that culture in play.
Absolutely. We have one more question, but we're out of time. So we will take this question up on Twitter and I'll put it up to all of you and you can all respond to it. With that, thank you so much, Chaya, Neha, Vasudha, Geetanjali, and Priya. What a phenomenal conversation it's been. I think we've touched upon various aspects of personal lives, the self, the culture, the collective, and of course, organizations. Thank you all so much for joining us. I quickly end a poem while we bring the others in. I'm going to read out a poem on our panel. It's as we all spoke. Equity is empowerment, fair justice. Let's not talk about equity when it's the skin in the game. Inherent versus acquired, naturally flowing, beyond average awareness and miles to go. But let's get the action going beyond the rhetoric, conscious of our privilege. Intrinsic power to be seen as who we are, and what's really the benchmark? More questions than answers, equal opportunities and access and platforms. Stepping away from bias, equity starts at home. Fix the perspective, the change starts with you, inclusion starts with you. We have a long way to go from where we want to be. We are the change makers and we know our unconscious biases. Let's talk about this in the agenda of diversity, ask for a seat at the table and start with diversity of thought. Gender agnostic conversations, critical, candid, constant conversations, mean it, own it. The magic of merit, resilience, community, strength, and confidence. In a nutshell of what we spoke about. So congratulations to all of you and thank you so much for joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, that was panel 1 at India Impact Communication Conclave, and what a power pack panel. Thank you once again to all of our speakers.